So, for the second part of Gideon's story, I wanted to tell you about a couple quick things just to summarize it. The first thing is God finds him and he calls him a mighty warrior. Gideon argues with him about that. And then, when he proves who he is, when he proves that he's God speaking to him, Gideon's ready to fall in line, goes through a couple tests to make sure that he's still hearing God right. But God calls him to two battles. The first battle is the battle against idolatry. And he battles that and against the opposition of the people. People always fight when you try to take their idols away from them. And then he battles like an actual war. Like he has to go to war against the oppressors, the nations that are oppressing him. And so as he's preparing for that, he gathers an army together, and God looks at it and says, Gideon, that's too many people. Now, Gideon, see, he seems to be hearing from God. Maybe nobody else is, but it's because he had met with the Lord. Now he's able to hear and discern his voice. And even though the angel of the Lord isn't there physically present, Gideon can still hear his voice because he's able to discern the voice of the Lord. We all need to get to a place in our walk with God where we're able to hear his voice and discern it amongst all the other voices that are going on in the world. Well, Gideon, he has his army there. He's got them encamped by the river, and they're ready to fight. But God looks and he says, Gideon, that's too many men. I can't win with that many men because I don't want Israel to think that they did it on their own power. I want them to be able to trust in me again. So Gideon says, if anybody's too scared, go home. 22,000 guys leave, that they only have 10,000 left. But God says, no, that's still too many. I can't do it with that. So here's a test. Have everybody go down by the water and tell them to take a drink. Whoever kneels by the water to drink and puts their face right down in it, they can go home. The ones who actually scoop up the water and hold it to their face, and he says, who lap it like a dog. Now, that's only 300 men that do that, and so the rest of them go home. So he went from an army of 32,000 down to 300. I mean, it is a decimated number. And I don't know if the lapping like a dog thing is because they were literally that stupid, or if it's because they were actually the ones that were standing at attention, drinking a little bit, looking around, making sure everyone's safe. I don't know which it is, but they 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 have such a small army now that Gideon's probably scared again. And God says tonight's the night for battle, but if you're still worried about it, if this scares you, this latest move, I want you to take your servant, go down to where the Midianite camp is. Now there was the Midianites and the Amalekites. And he says, go down to their camp and just see what happens. So Gideon's thinking, okay, I'm literally going behind enemy lines. Whatever, okay, God, this can't get much weirder than it is. Well, he finds out. He goes down there, and it turns out that the first people they bump into is a guy telling his buddy about a dream. Now, usually when people say, "Hey, I had this crazy dream last night," I say, "No thanks, I don't care. It was a dream. It doesn't matter." This dream mattered. You see, what ends up happening is the guy recounts the dream. He says, listen, I saw this barley loaf. Barley was like the cheap grain, the weak stuff. He says, I saw a barley loaf rolling down the hill, and it totally obliterated the tents of Midian. It just smashed the whole camp. And the other guy says, this has to be Gideon, the man of God of Israel, that God has given our camp, our war party, into their hands. So Gideon is like, he's not scared anymore, but instead of just turning right around, it says that he bowed down and worshiped. I don't know how long he worshiped God, but he put his focus on God and he worshiped God. And then he and his servant go back. They prepare their camp for battle by splitting the 300 men up into groups of 100. So he's got 3 groups, and each of them, he gives the man a trumpet and a torch inside of a clay pot. Now, this is kind of cumbersome and nothing you're going to fight a battle with. But remember, God's fighting this battle. And they get into position. They blow one trumpet. That's the signal. Then everybody else blows their trumpet and breaks the clay pot. And so that way the light from the torches shows. And I guess the Midianite army believes that they're surrounded by like 300 companies of soldiers or something like that, and so they get into pandemonium mode. They're awakened from their sleep. It's the middle of the night, and so they wake up from their sleep, and in pandemonium they start fighting each other. They start fleeing. They leave everything behind and they take off. And Gideon is, the people are shouting, his soldiers are shouting, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. And so this is just scaring everybody. They're gone. The Israelites are taking off after him. They start gathering. They send some messengers to the surrounding areas of Israel, and they say, like, men, come fight now. The Lord's given the battle into our hands. So Israelite army gathers back together, and they take off in pursuit. They capture the generals of the two armies, and they slaughter them. And then Gideon, he flees off. He's like, I'm not done. I'm going to finish this whole thing. And so he goes off to get the kings of these two warring nations so that they won't ever harm Israel again. So many times we think that the battle that's in front of us is too big, and our strength is too small, and we wonder how we're ever going to be able to even start the battle to win it. We can't do it in our own strength. It's only in the strength of God, and when he calls us to act, when he calls us to do something, we have to do it. When he calls us to be mighty men and women of valor, we have to work not in the strength that we have, but in the strength that God gives us. What areas do you feel weak, too weak to do anything, and yet God is saying, it's to that very area that I've called you, so that you're not the one that gets the praise and glory, but so that God does. Spend some time praying, spend some time worshiping God and asking him what he's calling you to do. Because it might not be gathering an army, but I bet there's a battle that he's calling you to fight. Don't shrink away from that battle, but move forward as a mighty man or woman of God. Thanks for watching.